Ambassador Li Minji felt the cold metal floor beneath her polished boots as she walked through the massive corridors of Kepler 7 station. The artificial gravity here was lighter than Earth's, making each step feel like she was floating. Around her, the walls pulsed with alien technology that humanity was still trying to understand. Strange lights moved in patterns that hurt to look at directly. She had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Every night, she studied the alien languages, their customs, their history. She memorized trade agreements from 1,000 different worlds. She practiced her speeches until her throat was raw. Today would decide the future of every human being alive. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched out before her like a cathedral made of living crystal. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above, while the floor reflected everything like a perfect mirror. Hundreds of alien beings filled the massive space, their forms so strange that Minji's eyes struggled to focus on them properly. Behind her, Captain Park Ji-ho adjusted his dress uniform for the 100th time. His medals caught the strange light, each one representing battles fought in the outer colonies. Next to him, Commander Kim Do-yeon stood perfectly still, but Mingi could see the tension in his shoulders. Both men had fought aliens before. Today, they were trying to make peace with them. The Zephyrian representative rose from its crystal throne. It looked like a mountain of living glass, with lights dancing inside its transparent body. When it spoke, the sound was like wind chimes in a hurricane, beautiful and terrible at the same time. "Human ambassador," the creature said, its voice turning into words through the translation machines. "You come before us, seeking rights you have not earned. Your species crawled out of its caves only yesterday. In galactic terms, we have been crossing the stars since before your son was born." Minji stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over. She had practiced this speech 1,000 times. "Honored members of the council, humanity comes in peace. We seek only fair treatment and the right to expand our settlements to uninhabited worlds. We offer trade, knowledge, and friendship to all species." A sound like grinding metal came from the Cathara section. The hive-minded insects moved as one, their thousands of voices speaking in perfect unity. "Friendship. Your species fights wars over patches of dirt. You cannot even unite your own world. Why should we trust you with others?" From the shadows at the back of the hall, something ancient stirred. The Voidborn Arbiter was older than recorded history, a creature that had seen the birth and death of entire civilizations. When it spoke, reality itself seemed to bend around its words. "The young species always want more," it said, its voice coming from everywhere and nowhere. "More worlds, more resources, more power. They never learned that the galaxy has rules. Old rules, sacred rules." Minji felt sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool air. She pulled out her datapad and began reading the carefully prepared legal arguments. She spoke about empty worlds that humans could colonize without displacing anyone. She talked about resources that were going unused, while human colonies struggled to survive. She offered technology and cultural exchange. For 6 hours, she presented humanity's case. She showed holographic displays of overcrowded Earth cities. She played recordings of children on colony worlds asking for basic medical supplies that were being denied by alien trade restrictions. She quoted galactic law and precedent, going back 10,000 years. The aliens listened with the patience of immortals. Some slept. Others seemed to be having private conversations that excluded the humans entirely. A few appeared to be studying the humans like specimens in a laboratory. When Minji finally finished, the vote was swift and brutal. The holographic display lit up with alien symbols, each one a rejection of humanity's plea. Not a single species voted in their favor. Not even the ones that traded with Earth voted to help. The restrictions were worse than before. Humanity would be limited to their current solar system for the next century. Trade would be reduced to essential supplies only, at prices that would bankrupt most colonies. Any attempt to expand beyond these limits would be met with force. The Council has spoken, the Voidborn Arbiter announced. Earth will comply with these restrictions, or face the consequences of defying galactic law. This session is closed. As the alien representatives began filing out of the hall, their forms shifting and changing in ways that made Minji dizzy. She felt something break inside her chest. 3 years of preparation, decades of careful diplomacy. All for nothing. Captain Park moved close to her ear as they walked toward the exit. His voice was barely a whisper, but she heard every word clearly. They have no idea what they just did. Commander Kim nodded, his face carved from stone. Send the coded message to Earth Command. Tell them the gloves are off. Minji looked back at the empty council hall one last time. The aliens had made their choice. They saw humanity as weak, as children to be controlled and limited. They thought Earth would simply accept this judgment and retreat quietly to their small corner of the galaxy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Governor Yunhana stood at the observation deck of New Soul Colony, watching the stars through the transparent aluminum windows. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of their solar system, alien ships waited like hungry wolves. For 3 weeks now, no supply ships had made it through their blockade. The colony's grain stores were running low. The medical supplies were almost gone. Yesterday, a child in Sector 7 had died from a fever that could have been easily cured with the right medicine. Medicine that was sitting in cargo holds light years away, blocked by creatures who saw humans as nothing more than annoying insects. Hannah's communication device buzzed softly. The message was short and came from Earth Command. Relief is coming. Prepare for supply drop in 72 hours. She wanted to believe it, but how could Earth send help when the entire system was surrounded? Far away on Earth, Admiral Cho Minho sat in his office deep beneath the mountains of Korea. The room was filled with screens, showing the locations of every human ship in known space. For years, people had thought these were just cargo vessels and passenger transports. Even most of his own officers believed that. The sealed orders on his desk had arrived that morning, bearing the signatures of every major world leader. The Global Defense Council had finally made their decision. Humanity had tried to play by the galaxy's rules. They had begged and negotiated and offered friendship. The aliens had responded with blockades and threats. Now, it was time to show them what humans really were. Cho activated his personal communication system, the one that reached every corner of human space through quantum entanglement transmitters. His voice would reach 17 star systems instantly, speaking directly to captains who had been waiting for this moment for decades. All vessels, this is Fleet Command, he said, his words carrying across the void 2 ships scattered throughout human territory. The Diplomatic Protection Fleet is hereby activated. Operation Thunderclap is now in effect. Reveal protocols are authorized. Light years away, Captain 1. Seok-jin received a transmission aboard what appeared to be an ordinary grain transport called the Peaceful Trader. He had been hauling rice and wheat between colonies for 15 years, stopping at every checkpoint, filing all the proper paperwork, smiling politely at alien inspectors who treated him like a servant. None of them had ever looked closely at his ship's real specifications. None of them had wondered why a grain hauler needed such powerful engines, or why its hull was made from materials that were supposed to be restricted to military use. Seok-jin walked to the center of his bridge and placed his hand on a scanner that had been hidden beneath a false panel. Computer authorization, Seok-jin 7's, 7 Alpha. Begin transformation sequence. The ship around him began to change. The outer hull, which had looked like dull gray metal for years, started to shift and move. Panels slid away to reveal weapons that had been hidden in cargo holds. The engine pods extended and reconfigured, showing their true power. The entire shape of the vessel flowed like liquid metal, becoming something sleek and dangerous. Within minutes, the peaceful trader was gone. In its place was the Soul's Vengeance, a warship that looked like it had been designed by predators for hunting prey. Its hull was so black it seemed to absorb light, and strange energy fields rippled around its edges like heat waves. Across human space, the same transformation was happening to hundreds of ships. The Busan Ghost shed its medical supply transport, disguised to become a stealth destroyer. The Daegu Thunder stopped pretending to be a passenger liner and revealed missile launchers that could crack asteroids. The Incheon Phantom dropped its mining equipment facade and powered up sensors that could track a coin in an asteroid field. For 30 years, humanity had been building a secret fleet. Every cargo run had been a training mission. Every trade route had been mapped for tactical advantage. Every civilian captain had been a military officer in disguise, learning alien patrol patterns and defensive positions. The aliens had thought they were threatening farmers and merchants. They had posted their blockades around systems full of helpless colonists who would surrender rather than fight. They had calculated that humans would accept any humiliation, rather than risk actual war. Captain Wan looked at his tactical display, showing the alien enforcement ships that had been blockading the new Sol system for weeks. They were powerful vessels, each one capable of destroying a planet if they chose to. But they were designed to fight other aliens, creatures who followed predictable patterns and honored ancient rules of warfare. Humans didn't follow those rules. Humans had learned to fight by surviving on a world full of predators, and they had never forgotten those lessons. Seokjin activated his ship's new communication array and sent a message to every human vessel in the sector. All units, this is Soul's Vengeance. Time to show these aliens what happens when you threaten human children. The response came back from dozens of ships that had suddenly appeared on sensors. Vessels that had been hiding in plain sight for years. Copy that, Vengeance. Let's go hunting. The aliens were about to learn that they had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were fighting farmers. They were actually facing apex predators who had been planning this moment for decades. Commander. Velthari floated in the command chamber of the crystal ship Eternal Dominance, watching the stars through walls made of living diamond. The Zephyrian enforcement fleet had been patrolling the Proxima Centauri system for 6 weeks now, making sure no human ships could reach the struggling colonies there. 12 massive crystal vessels hung in space like frozen lightning, each one larger than a human city. Their hulls were grown, rather than built, shaped from pure crystal that could repair itself and channel energy in ways that most species couldn't understand. These ships had been the terror of the galaxy for thousands of years. Velthari's crystalline body hummed with satisfaction as it reviewed the sensor reports. No human ships had tried to break through their blockade in days. The pathetic colonists on the planets below were probably eating their last food supplies right now. Soon they would surrender, and the galaxy would see what happened to species. That defied the Council. The first sign that something was wrong came from the sensor operator, a younger Zephyrian whose crystal form flickered with nervous energy. Commander, I'm getting strange readings from Sector 7. The gravity sensors are showing impossible patterns. Velthari turned its attention to the displays, watching waves of data flow across the crystal screens. The readings made no sense. Space itself seemed to be bending in ways that violated every law of physics. Run a full diagnostic on all sensor arrays. These readings are clearly malfunctioned. But the diagnostics came back clean. The sensors were working perfectly. They were detecting gravity wells that shouldn't exist. Electromagnetic fields that appeared and disappeared without any source. And quantum signatures that seemed to dance just at the edge of detection. Commander, called another operator, its voice rising with panic. The crystal harmony has stopped responding to communications. Velthari's form blazed with alarm as it tried to contact the ship. The crystal harmony was their heaviest vessel, a fortress that could withstand the combined firepower of a dozen enemy fleets. But when the commander looked at the tactical display, there was only empty space where the ship should have been. "Where is it?" Velthari demanded. Ships that size don't just disappear. The sensor operator's crystal body was now flickering like a broken light. Sir, according to our readings, it was there one moment, and then, ... it simply wasn't. No explosion, no debris field, no energy discharge. It just stopped existing, light years away. Lieutenant Han Suyang sat at her control station aboard the human ship, Busan Phantom, monitoring displays that would have seemed like magic to the aliens hunting. Vim. The stealth field generators around her hummed with barely contained power, bending space and time itself to hide the ship from detection. Humans had discovered something that no other species in the galaxy knew. Reality was not as solid as it appeared. With the right technology, you could convince the universe that your ship didn't exist. You could make gravity ignore you. You could step outside the normal flow of time and space. Stealth field holding at maximum efficiency, Han reported to her captain. The crystals still don't know we're here. Captain Zhang Wuzhen studied the tactical display, watching the alien ships move in their predictable patrol patterns. They were powerful, yes, but they thought like creatures who had never been hunted. They expected their enemies to announce themselves with weapons blazing and honor intact. Humans had learned to hunt by surviving on a planet full of predators. They understood the value of patience, stealth, and striking from the shadows. Target acquired, Zhang announced quietly. Crystalline vessel, Eternal Radiance, bearing 27 Mark IV. Distance, 40,000 kilometers. They're still following their standard patrol route. The weapons officer checked his displays one more time. The quantum disruptor was charged and ready. This weapon didn't just destroy ships, it erased them from reality itself, breaking down the bonds that held matter together at the most fundamental level. Fire when ready, Zhang ordered. The weapon discharged with no flash, no sound, no dramatic explosion. One moment the alien ship was there, a massive crystal fortress bristling with weapons. The next moment, it was simply gone, replaced by a cloud of particles that would take alien scientists years to analyze. Back on the Eternal Dominance, Commander Veltheri watched in horror as another ship vanished from the tactical display. The crystal radiance had been there, following its patrol route, when it suddenly ceased to exist. The sensors showed nothing but expanding dust where a kilometer-long warship had been moments before. All ships, emergency formation, Velt commanded. We're under attack by an unknown enemy. But how do you fight an enemy you cannot see? How do you defend against weapons that strike without warning? The crystal ships began moving closer together, their powerful shields overlapping, their sensors sweeping space desperately. It didn't help. Every few minutes, another ship would simply disappear. The harmony of ages vanished while trying to retreat. The infinite majesty stopped existing in the middle of sending a distress call. The pride of Zephyr was there 1 second and gone. The next dot within 2 hours, only 3 ships remained of the mighty enforcement fleet. Commander Valtheri's crystal form was flickering wildly with panic as it sent desperate messages to the Galactic Council. This is Commander Valthari, of the Proxima Centauri Enforcement Fleet. It transmitted on all emergency frequencies. We are under attack by unknown forces using impossible technology. Request immediate reinforcement. But there would be no reinforcements. Across 17 star systems, similar scenes were playing out. The galaxy's enforcement fleets were discovering that they had been hunting ghosts all along, ghosts with very real teeth and an appetite for revenge. The unity of purpose was the pride of the Cathara fleet, a living ship grown rather than built. Its hull was made of biometal that could heal itself, and its weapons were powered by the combined will of 10,000 insect minds working as one. The ship had fought in wars that lasted centuries and had never been defeated. Captain Kim Taeyong crouched in the darkness of a cargo bay deep inside the alien vessel, checking his equipment one last time. He and his team had been hiding here for 6 months, sealed inside containers that the Cathara thought contained rare minerals from Earth. The aliens had been so eager to accept these diplomatic gifts that they never scanned them properly. The corridors of the ship pulsed around them like the inside of a giant heart. The walls were wet and warm, covered with veins that carried nutrients and information throughout the vessel. Strange lights flickered beneath the surface, showing the constant flow of thoughts between the hive mind members. "Status report," Taeyong whispered into his communication device, his voice barely audible even to his own team. "Explosives are in position," came the reply from Sergeant Park Minwoo, who had spent the last month crawling through maintenance shafts to reach the ship's nerve centers. "Quantum disruptors are armed and ready." These weren't ordinary bombs. Human scientists had discovered that the Kithara hive mind depended on quantum connections between their brains, invisible threads that let them share thoughts and coordinate their actions. Break those connections, and 10,000 aliens would suddenly find themselves alone in their own minds for the first time in their lives. Taeyong looked at his watch. In 30 seconds, Admiral Cho's fleet would begin their attack on the void-born dreadnoughts in the next system. The timing had to be perfect. 2 enemies, 2 different strategies, 1 coordinated strike that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. "Remember," he told his team, "we're not here to fight 10,000 aliens. We're here to cut off the head of the snake. Once the hive mind breaks, they won't be able to work together anymore. They'll be scared and confused, like children lost." In the dark, the countdown reached 0. Throughout the ship, hidden explosives detonated simultaneously, sending quantum pulses through the biometal hull. The effect was immediate and devastating. The constant hum of shared thoughts that filled the ship suddenly went silent in the command center. The Kithara Queen felt the connection to her subjects snap like breaking cables. For the first time in her 1,000-year life, she was alone. Inside her own head, around her, 10,000 aliens began screaming in panic as they experienced individual consciousness. For the first time, some tried to hide under control panels. Others ran in circles, not knowing what to do without the hive mind to guide them. The ship's weapons powered down as the gunners forgot how to operate them without shared knowledge. The engines began to fluctuate as the engineering crew lost their perfect coordination. Meanwhile, in the void-born sector, Admiral Cho Min-ho watched ancient dreadnoughts approaching his fleet. These ships were older than human civilization, massive fortresses that had conquered entire star systems. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered with weapons that could destroy planets. The aliens expected a traditional battle, where opposing fleets would line up and pound each other with heavy weapons until one side surrendered. They had fought this way for millions of years, and they always won because their ships were bigger and stronger than anything else in the galaxy. But humans had learned warfare from different teachers. They had studied wolves hunting buffalo, sharks attacking whales, and fighter jets engaging bombers. Size and strength didn't always win. Speed and cunning could defeat power if you knew how to use them. "All ships, swarm formation, Alpha," Cho commanded. His fleet of small, fast vessels began moving in patterns that made no sense to the alien commanders. Instead of forming battle lines, the human ships spread out like a school of fish, surrounding the massive dreadnoughts from all directions. The Voidborn opened fire with weapons that could vaporize asteroids, but the human ships were already gone, dancing between the energy beams like leaves in a hurricane. They struck at weak points in the alien hulls, sensor arrays, weapon mounts, engine exhausts, places that were heavily armored on most ships, but had been left vulnerable on vessels that never expected to be attacked by smaller opponents. Captain Lee Junho piloted his destroyer Soul's Fury under the belly of a void-born dreadnought, firing quantum torpedoes into the alien ship's reactor intake. The massive vessel shuddered as explosions rippled through its hull, but it was far from destroyed. That wasn't the point. Dozens of other human ships were making similar attacks, each one targeting a different system. The aliens found their sensors blinded, their weapons disabled, their engines damaged. They were still powerful, but they were fighting blind and crippled. "This is impossible," transmitted the Voidborn fleet commander on an open channel. "Your ships are too small to threaten us." Admiral Cho's response was broadcast across the entire sector. "You're thinking about this wrong. We're not trying to destroy you with single attacks. We're performing surgery. Death by 1,000 cuts." The mathematics of war had changed completely. Where aliens saw individual battles between ships, humans saw complex equations involving speed, positioning, timing, and psychology. They had turned warfare into a science, and they were teaching the galaxy new lessons written in fire and quantum energy. The surrender message came at exactly 1427 Galactic Standard Time, transmitted simultaneously across every inhabited system in known space. Admiral Cho Minho read it 3 times before he could believe what he was seeing. The proud species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were begging for mercy in words their own translators struggled to process. "Please," the Zephyrian message flickered across his screen in broken human language. "We surrender all claims. We beg for peace. Our people starve. Our fleets are gone. We will accept any terms." The Cathara message was even more desperate. Without their hive mind connection, the insect aliens could barely form coherent thoughts. Their plea was simple and terrifying. "Help us. We don't know how to live alone. We will serve. Please teach us." The void-born ancient beings, who had witnessed the birth and death of stars, sent a message that chilled Cho to his bones. "We yield to the younger predators. The galaxy belongs to Earth now. We were wrong." Commander Park Sahi stood beside her, Admiral, watching the holographic display that showed human ships taking control of trade routes, space stations, and entire star systems. What had once been alien territory now flew Earth's flag. The war that was supposed to last decades had ended in 4 months and 12 days. "Sir," she said quietly, "they're asking for ceasefire negotiations. Should we respond?" Cho looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, alien children were crying because their parents couldn't feed them. Somewhere, proud warriors who had never known defeat were learning what it meant to be conquered. Somewhere, species that had ruled for millions of years were discovering that the galaxy had new masters. He activated the ship's communication array, setting it to broadcast on every frequency used by every known species. His words would reach every corner of inhabited space, from the crystal cities of the Zephyrians to the darkest void stations of the Ancient Ones. "This is Admiral Cho Minho of the Earth Defense Force," he began, his voice carrying across light years instantly. "To all alien species who once sat on the Galactic Council, to all enforcement fleets, to all who believed humanity would quietly accept your restrictions." He paused, looking at the tactical display showing scattered alien ships limping back to their home worlds. "You had your chance to talk. Earth came to you with open hands, offering friendship, trade, and peaceful cooperation. We followed your laws, respected your customs, and asked only for fair treatment." The bridge was silent except for the hum of quantum transmitters, carrying his words to billions of alien listeners. "You chose arrogance instead of wisdom. You chose oppression instead of cooperation. You saw our diplomatic missions as weakness and our peaceful nature as cowardice." On distant worlds, alien leaders gathered around communication devices, listening to the human admiral's words with growing dread. They had expected threats, demands for tribute, promises of revenge. Instead, they heard something far more frightening: cold, calculating authority. "Now you will learn to live under the protection of those you dismissed as primitive," Cho continued. "Your trade routes will operate under human oversight. Your resource extraction will be managed by human administrators. Your conflicts will be resolved by human arbitrators. This is not a punishment, it is a necessity. You have proven that you cannot be trusted to govern yourselves responsibly." Light years away, on the rebuilt remains of Kepler 7 station, Governor Li Mingyi supervised the installation of new equipment in what had once been the Galactic Council chamber. The crystalline thrones, where alien representatives had once sat in judgment of humanity, were gone, replaced by efficient human workstations. She had been Ambassador Li Mingyi when she first walked into this room months ago, her diplomatic credentials gleaming, her heart full of hope for peaceful cooperation. Now she was governor of the sector, responsible for managing the transition of dozens of alien worlds to human administration. The plaque she was installing was made of simple earth steel, its surface polished to mirror brightness. The inscription was carved in 47 different alien languages, each translation carefully checked to ensure the meaning was exact. Earth tried diplomacy. The plaque read in symbols that ranged from crystalline light patterns to complex mathematical equations. You chose to hear only shockwaves. This is the sound of your new reality. Workers moved through the chamber, setting up the quantum communication arrays that would coordinate human administration across 17 star systems. The galaxy's new capital would be efficient, practical, and utterly different from the ancient ceremonial halls that had ruled for so long. Outside the station, human patrol ships moved along trade routes that had been controlled by aliens for thousands of years. The cargo vessels they escorted carried food to hungry worlds, medical supplies to struggling colonies, and hope to species that had learned what happened when they underestimated human determination. Captain Wan Seokjin, his ship now proudly displaying its true name, Soul's Vengeance, reported to Fleet Command as his patrol encountered a group of Zephyrian crystal ships. Limping home from their defeat at Proxima Centauri, the aliens immediately transmitted surrender codes and requested permission to pass through what was now human space. Permission granted, one replied, watching the defeated aliens carefully. Maintain current heading and speed. Any deviation from approved flight paths will be considered hostile action. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity's patience had limits, and those limits had been reached. Now the species that had once ruled through fear and tradition found themselves living under the protection of predators who preferred diplomacy but were very, very good at war. The age of alien dominance was over. The human era had begun.